This is Parker Pathways. Dr. Wynne Parker, February 3rd, 2007. We have as our guest Lorraine Moret, who has done some exquisite expose on deteriorated uranium and other facets of the contamination of our environment and the chemtrails and the discussion of HAARP. I wanted to just give a few lines from my interview by George Pearl, P-I-R-O, the FBI agent who debriefed Saddam Hussein following his capture in December 2003. The transcript from that interrogation by Mr. Pearl was, Mr. Pearl, the folks that he needed to reconstitute the program are still there. Mr. Pelley, who was part of the 60 Minutes interview of George Pearl, said, well, what weapons of mass destruction did he intend to pursue? Once again, he had the opportunity. Mr. Pearl's answer, he wanted to pursue all of the WMDs. He wanted to reconstitute his entire WMD program. Mr. Pelley, and that is what? Chemical, biological, and eventually nuclear? And the answer from Mr. Pearl is yes. And they elaborate what nuclear meant was what we're discussing on Parker Pathways today and what Lorraine is bringing out. I just want to put that on the table because a lot of people have been misguided in terms of the incredible microbiological new bacteria that were 6,000 times stronger than anthrax, the concept of the virus bioterrorism that was to be unleashed across the world, and the deteriorated uranium concept, which is, by the way, part of the contractors who are in Iraq right now building these chloramine factories, which cover 4 acres at a spot, and for the use of chloramine with the DU. Lorraine, have you had a chance to reflect just a few minutes before we go to the next break on John's call? Do you have anything to add to his answer?
Well, this is all part of depopulation. So let me just read another paragraph from my paper. The memorandum, Memo 200. Well, this is part of my paper. It's after the memo, quote. Okay. According to an NSC spokesman, that's National Security Council spokesman at the time of Dr. Kissinger's comments, the United States shared the view of former World Bank President Robert McNamara that the population crisis is a greater threat to U.S. national security interests than nuclear annihilation. In 1975, Henry Kissinger established a policy planning group in the U.S. State Department's Office of Population Affairs, and the U.S. population
we'll cover that. Yeah.
Is as much a target.
This is Parker Pathways, Dr. Wynne Parker, and I wanted to mention that in the physiology of deteriorated uranium, the assumption is that the behavior of deteriorated uranium in the body is identical to that of natural uranium. That's the basic premise in medical physiology circles, and that on the average we got about 90 micrograms of uranium in the human body, and in what's considered by the United Nations position, which they're going to talk about tomorrow, that the normal intakes of water and food and air, we just normally take this in, and about 66% of uranium is found in the skeleton of the human body, and 16% is in the kidneys, and then 10% is in other tissues. I take issue with the fact of how the physiology works on that, and that's where Lorraine's going to I feel it's far worse than that. Because I've been on the front lines of these kinds of activities in the human body and measuring them, and I can tell you right now that the behavior deteriorating in the body is not identical to that of natural uranium. And then the other fact that we're going to get into with Lauren is all of the aspects of what she is calling radio nanotubes and the nanotubes of single cell permeable membranes, which is a very important subject. What I'd like to have you do, Lauren, if you would be kind enough to finish reading your very important statements that you were starting to read about McNamara and human depopulation. Yes. That's an important piece of work that you've done there. Would you be kind enough to finish reading that?
Yes. I'm going to just read that again because it's sort of faded out. This is extremely important. According to an NSC spokesman at the time, this was in 1974, the United States shared the view of former World Bank President Robert McNamara that the population crisis is a greater threat to U.S. national security interests than nuclear annihilation. In 1975, Henry Kissinger established a policy planning group in the U.S. State Department's Office of Population Affairs. By 1979, depopulation was the top priority of U.S. national security policy as outlined in the National Security Paper Global 2000, written by Rockefeller contractors. These are people who actually work for the Rockefellers. Henry Kissinger, Zbigniew Brzezinski, General Alexander Haig, and Ed Muskie for President Carter. The Rockefellers brought the idea of depopulation to the U.S. from England in the 1920s. And with the Bush and Harriman families are the elite of the American eugenics movement. The sole purpose of this policy of scientific racism continues to be for the reduction of the world's population by 2 billion people through war, famine, disease, and any other means necessary. So, this is a war against the global population and the American population. And it's been engineered in the U.S. by the Rockefellers and their contractors. And the Rockefellers serve the City of London. Now, in the October 28th online edition of Nature Nanotechnology, which is a science journal published by Nature, the first direct images of carbon nanotubes entering cells were captured and presented in this paper. And it says, quote, for the first time, scientists have directly imaged carbon nanotubes entering and migrating within human cells. And the images are actually nanoparticles, carbon nanotubes, which entered the nucleus, where the DNA is located, of human cells within 48 hours of exposure. And this is exactly what nanoparticles of depleted uranium do, and our soldiers have reported being sick within 48 hours of exposure on the battlefield or wherever they're exposed.
Mm-hmm.
And determining as a result that whether the nanotubes cause cell death depends on the dose and exposure time.